Fit to survive and workers don't thrive. I am, as always, your host, Christopher Paul Doug Dellamy, DMA. We are Duncanville High School in these United States, and today is November 13th, 2021. And on this date in history, in 1991, there was a fire at Burleson High School. It was the beginning of our semester finals, and school was canceled. Although we had to go to school 3 days that summer. What the crap? Thanks a lot for burning the school down, idiot. Oh, have a good day. Finally, what we've all been waiting for, the rise of big business. So let's look at the difference between businesses and talk a little bit about the benefits of having each. Okay? A sole proprietorship is a business that is owned by one person. They take all the risk but receive all the profit. So, if I have a sole proprietorship and I make $5 million next year, that's all my money, and I get to keep all the profits, but I have to pay $5 million in taxes on that. Okay? So, a corporation is a business that's owned by many people, but the government treats it as if it's a person, which means that I have the same business, I make $5 million next year. The government will tax that at the same rate as a single person making $5 million. So that will take about $1.8 million from that. The $3.2 million, I can pay a big chunk of that to myself, but then I have to pay taxes on that as well. So if I pay myself $1 million, okay, that leaves about $2.2 million for the business. After taxes, I will get somewhere around $600,000. Now, on the bright side, if the company goes belly up, then any debt it has will not be mine. Okay? So, a sole proprietorship, if it goes out of business, they could go after your assets as well. Now, stockholders own the corporation and make money by selling stock or shares of the company. So, in a corporation, all you need is one person to own stock. Okay? Not all stock is shared, is not shared, is sold publicly. Meaning that you can't just buy stock in any company. So, when you have a business, you have two different types of cost. You have fixed cost. These are bills that you have whether the company is operating or not. Okay? So, this would be building use, this would be any of the machines that you have in your company. If you're in a restaurant, it would include tables and chairs, refrigerators, your grills, your fryers, your ovens. Those are all fixed cost in that business. If you have a factory, you have the building, you have the different machines you need to process your material. Those are all bills you pay whether or not you ever open. Now, operating costs occur whenever a company is in operation, and this can be electricity, this can be food, this can be a large number of things. Uh, this also is labor, like all the time that people work. Okay, these are all bills that you have to pay whenever a company is in operation. Okay, laissez faire. This is a type of economic system where the government does not interfere with business. This is pretty popular in many countries in the world. The problem is, once you get to a certain amount of wealth, this becomes problematic and can actually make it so the large companies can basically destroy all the smaller companies in the in competition with it. Okay. On the other hand, though, it can raise costs that can be uh, problematic for people operating the business. Okay, on a very personal note, whenever I had a rental house, we we had the city fine us to put in an air conditioner and heater, and they required that we had it installed on Christmas Eve whenever the complaint was first brought to them, or we would get a fee of about $10,000, and then $100 a day for every day until it was installed. And so not only did we have that hanging over our head, but we also had to obtain within the 2 hours left in that business day, a permit to put in an air conditioner, which cost us another $1,100. So we got that. We got the permit. We managed to get it put in, but it wasn't completely installed until about 3 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day. We ended up not having to pay the penalty because we were given that access. But what did we get for having having a permit from the city of Arlington for the permit? Well, the truth there is they did absolutely nothing. They didn't inspect. They didn't do anything. They just kind of put we just had to pay that fee to Arlington for, replacing air conditioner. Okay. Horizontal integration. This is whenever several companies doing the same type of business are rolled into one corporation. Simplest one of these would be probably the Yum Corporation. Okay. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, that is a combination of Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, Long John Silver, A&W Root Beer, Backyard Burgers. All of those together are part of horizontal integration. And that corporation does exist, the one I just explained. Okay? A trust is a way of merging businesses together without violating laws. And it lets one person manage another person's property. Basically, the way I have things set up is if anything happens to my wife or I, then all of our assets will be sold, and then that money will be held in a trust that is managed by my father until my children are either 25 or they graduate from college with a bachelor's degree, whichever one of those happens first. Okay? Monopoly. This is what occurs whenever one company controls the entire market for a product. Okay? This would be an instance of, imagine if Apple was the only type of cell phone out there. Okay? A lot of people love Apple, but not everyone does. Not everyone trusts Apple. And there's a lot of people who like different Android devices. Basically, what this means is there would be no requirement for Apple to improve their products. So they could basically keep out the original phone that they had and not spend any money on research and development to make it a better product. And, well, anyway, so that's one of the things that you could do in that type of instance. Andrew Carnegie, he was an Irish immigrant. He was actually at one point an orphan, okay, as a small child. And he went from being an orphan to becoming a billionaire and one of the wealthiest men in the world. He used something called the Bessemer process that made steel stronger and cheaper using the coke that's a byproduct of coal to heat the metal to make a stronger version of steel. And one of the things that he did that was really innovative was the vertical integration of the steel industry. And this is whenever you own all the different types of businesses that a company depends on. In the instance of steel, you would have iron ore fields, so you would get all the iron directly out of the ground, get it out pure. In addition, you would have coal mines, so that you could use the coke from the coal to make the steel a little bit hotter. And limestone quarries, which I have no idea what part that is of the steel process. I'm guessing you use limestone to give it the flavor of lime. That steel, that tastes fantastic. So I'm not just getting a strong product, I'm also getting a tasty product. You know what I can say about this? What a steal. Yeah, that's all you get. So, so at one point in his life, he looks around and says, "You know what? I am a multi-billionaire, and what I really need to do is give back to the community." And so he started a program called the Gospel of Wealth, and he used philanthropy or his fortune to further social progress. So what he does is he's not giving this money away to poor families. What he does is he uses his money as a conduit for people to get out of poverty. He built a ridiculous number of libraries across the United States and started a series of programs to make it possible for people to advance, to learn, and to give them an opportunity to become wealthier. Anyway, he gave away uh, over 80% of all the money that he earned in his life. Nearly 90%. His family's still extremely wealthy, though. But he and his kids are all dead now. John D. Rockefeller, okay? He started Standard Oil, the first monopoly, okay? And they controlled the world's oil market using vertical integration, okay? So they controlled all aspects of the business and kept its funds out of banks in case of a financial crisis, okay? So basically what he did, sorry, I just read over what I said and I want to explain exactly what happens. So he owned a couple of oil companies. He got into one oil company. He decided he was going to buy one of his competitors and did that and controlled a little bit more of the market and went on to buy another one until it got to the point where he started doing this as a chain reaction. There comes a point where he actually has made it so that trains, that about 80% of the cargo that they carry on them are all his oil. And whenever they try to raise prices on Rockefeller, then he begins to build pipelines to ship oil underground to get all of it to, whatever regions of the nation that he needed to. Okay? So he buys out all of his competitors or squeezes them out so that no one else will buy them or makes it nearly impossible for them to get their oil to market. By the time he's done, though, he controls 95% of the nation's oil. Now, this is before the boom of the automobile. So once the automobile is invented, then he becomes even wealthier. He makes billions and billions and billions of dollars, and he will even donate $500 million to education and to medicine to try and improve both. Okay? Yet it still takes him about 15 years after this to discover that washing your hands is an important aspect of promoting health. So I don't even know what to say about that. So, in The Origin of Species, this is a book that's written by Charles Darwin, and he wrote that man developed from lower life forms. Okay, basically that the whole theory of evolution, single cell organism splits into two, splits into four, and then they developed over time, eventually moving towards man, and many of these groups becoming extinct over the years, and that the development and the success of whatever creatures are here on Earth is part of the survival of the fittest. Now, Herbert Spencer, he takes Charles Darwin's theory of evolution and applies it to human society. This is called social Darwinism, and basically says that the only people in society that are fit to survive are the ones who are fit to survive. You don't need any type of economic safety net underneath people, that if people die, it's because they were not strong enough and fit to survive, and that the world would become a better, stronger place if people were forced to survive based on their own competence and will to fight over the whole helping out other people. Basically the rich people are rich because they were superior to other people, according to social Darwinism. There's actually an award that goes out every year called the Darwin Award, which is given to the person that kills himself in the dumbest way every year. The first winner of the award was to someone who accidentally tipped a Coke machine over on themselves, trying to tip out a free Coke. Not only did they win the award because of the stupidity of that action, but also because they had around $8 in change in their pockets. So, I give you science and technology and, well, anyway. thanks to the gene pool. Immigration. Now, for the longest time, most people that came to America came from England and France and Spain, and then also Germany. Okay, the Irish would also come in, and those areas were all, well, except for Spain, but the bigger groups of Germany, France, England, and and I would probably say any of your Nordic countries, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, uh, the uh, the Netherlands, Belgium, and let me see what else, Switzerland. All of those type of people would be accepted over here, and even to extent Austrians. But they didn't want anyone else because they didn't share some of the same government goals of democracy, and also they didn't share the same Christian goals. So other Christian sects might come in and cause some problems. So many of them did not like these other people coming in. But from the 1890s forward, you start to see a rush of people from Canada, from the Caribbean, from China, from Mexico, and then also from Eastern Europe, where you have people from Poland coming over, Hungary, Italy, and a lot of the Slavic nations near Greece. And then the Middle East started to come over as well. So you have this influx of people coming into the United States that were different from other people and were greatly attacked because of not racial differences, but I guess ethnic differences. So a type of hate that had existed between white people for a long time, but really charged at this point because more of a immigrant population moving over. Okay, thousands of Russian Jews are going to go to New York whenever Hungary is dissolved for a short period of time, and Russian Jews as well. In 1905, there's a massive movement to kill Jews in Russia that forced them to move west and end up in Poland. So, uh, one of the facts that you may not know is 25% of all the immigrants that came to the United States during this time actually went home. Now, they came over in steerage, which is a 14-day trip on the cheapest part of the ship to Ellis Island. Once you got there, they would record your information, have a doctor look you over, and if the first doctor during the screening process thought that you were uh, dangerous to other people health wise, they sent you over to an island next to Ellis Island, where you would either sit in recovery until you were completely healthy, or until you would sit over there and die. That was about a 50-50 chance of either one of those. In fact, you might be sent over there healthy and die because of infection from other people around you. Sorry for all the happiness that I've been sharing with you. The Dumbbell Tenement. This is a place where poor people would live inside the cities. This is really cheap housing. Mainly immigrants were living in these buildings. Okay, you can see the makeout of them up on the top picture, and sometimes you might have somewhere around three to six families living in each one of these apartments. Okay, and that is in those three rooms that are shown up above: the 9x6, the 6x10, or the 9x10, and the 11x14. So you might have as many as four families living in there. There's no living room. There's no bathroom. Basically, what you had was a basin of water to wash if you had the water for it, and you would have a bucket to go to the bathroom in, and then the only light you would have would be from the windows. So congratulations, everyone. This would suck. Now, Jane Addams, who will later win the Nobel Peace Prize for doing this, she started what was called the Hull House. This was a settlement house that would teach immigrants English and survival skills, uh, mainly to try and give people a leg up on the competition, give them a chance to survive in the United States. Uh, a pretty altruistic move on her part, just taking care of others without, any type of real gain for herself. Down at the bottom, Louis Sullivan, he invented the skyscraper. He was working in a laboratory and mixing together some Bunsen burners and some beakers when, alas, there was an explosion, and whenever the smoke cleared, there was a skyscraper in place. Actually, what he did was he got them to use steel so that you have wider spans without having to have posts, and he was able to build really tall buildings doing this. But you have a big major infrastructure on the inside of the building where you have beams about every 10 to 15 feet, if you were lucky, that would hold up not only that floor but the floor above it. So you'd have beams running almost the entire length and width of the building and height, but put in smaller pieces that held everything together. But you could build taller buildings than you could before. So anyone who's looking for a benefit there is your benefit. Urbanization. So one of the problems with building cities is getting water in and water out. Okay, so in a 30-year time span, the population of the United States doubled, and the population in the cities tripled. Okay, there were when you've got that many people in a place, you've got massive amounts of garbage that you have to remove from the city. You have water that's contaminated by urine and fecal matter. Also, horse urine and horse manure. By the way, they will produce about 60 pounds of manure a week. And then also somewhere around 12 gallons of urine, which is a lot. Okay? There were pigs roaming through the streets, untreated sewage, and then also they had around 15,000 horses dying there a day. Okay? So that's somewhere around 45 horses that they would need to remove every day, 365 days a year. Okay? There's a picture of some kids playing near a dead horse on the street. Oftentimes you could see going through the street rivers of urine with boo-boo in it because they had no way of treating it. Okay? I don't know if you know this, but you get all your drinking water from the Trinity River, which is, upstream. Well, I live upstream from you, so every time I flush my toilet, you have more drinking water or water to shower in. I know you're thinking, oh, gross, but they do things to sanitize it and make it drinkable for other people. But these are all important city services that are put in. Now, in addition to that, you have, whenever people move into the towns, they move into these ethnic neighborhoods where you would move in and live pretty close to other people that have common culture to you. Okay? So if you look right there at some of these areas around New York, you see really large pockets of Italian population, Chinese population, Haitian, African Americans, Guyanese. You have Asian Indian population, Ecuadorian, Puerto Rican, Dominican. In fact, there's a lot of Dominican areas. You also have Irish, English, a few small American ones. Okay, you have Puerto Ricans, if I didn't say that already, and Jamaicans. So people would spill into neighborhoods where, normally people of their own culture would take advantage of them until they slowly found their way out to take advantage of other people. Although there were some good people that would try and help in addition, sometimes it was just another way of kicking people while they were down. So, okay, so here you can see kind of the explosion in the cities. Okay, in 1890 you have 3 cities that have over a million people. Okay, that is Chicago, New York, and Philadelphia. Okay, so if you're looking at this though, I know that some of these might not look like it. Like for instance, Philadelphia is missing the 1 in front of the 647. So I don't know what's up with that, but that's what's up with that. So anyway, you also have New York being the largest city in the world in 1900. You have the elevated train and electric trolley that made it possible for people to live outside the city but work in the city at night. The Second Industrial Revolution. Okay, now this starts in Germany and the United States, and this is what makes both very powerful nations going into the 20th century and World War I and World War II. You have massive improvements in transportation and communication. You have electrical power and applying scientific research to industry. And the U.S. and Germany had mastered this at an early time period. What really helped out the United States is the major influx of immigrant populations to work really low paying jobs and make it possible for them to do a lot of experiments to try and make people more productive. Okay. In 1913, though, just to show how unsafe it was, in the United States, 25,000 people died at work that year, and there were 700,000 people in that one year who were seriously injured. Okay. This could be the loss of a limb. This could be a fractured spine where you couldn't walk again. There were a great number of horrible injuries that people received at work. Paperclip cuts, though, however, do not fall under that jurisdiction. Now, for the protection of workers, there was a new system that was put together called unions. And these are a group of workers that negotiate one. They represent everyone that works for the company, and they're responsible for any types of benefits, salaries, anything that happens to people that work in the workplace. Okay? So that's what a union is. Okay? Now, a trade union, this is designed for only people with specific skills. Okay? So, not just anyone could be in a trade union. What you'd need to do is have a trade where you might be a welder, where you might be a plumber, you might be an electrician. You have to have some type of specific skill that you spend some type of as an apprentice learning before you're able to go out and actually do the job on your own. Okay? Now, a strike, this is where workers stop working until their demands are met. Okay? Now, if there's a strike going on, the company may try and hire strike breakers. And these are replacement workers during strikes. Now, you might go in and take the job as a strike breaker, but once the strike is over, you are put on a blacklist. And I know that I have something different there at the bottom for this, but you're put on a blacklist where you're never welcome to work in the company after that. Where, although they may hire you to work there, you will be harassed by other members that work there because they see you as a scab, which is a negative term, because you're not supposed to go in and work during a strike. Now, a lockout. This is the opposite of a strike. This is whenever management sees that they're paying too much and they close until demands are met or until they break the union. Okay? Now, a blacklist. These are union organizers or strike leaders that were put on a no-hire list. So no one will hire people from this that's on a blacklist. Okay, now there's a couple things that were put in place to try and make it harder for unions to be successful. Okay, if you look at the map on the left-hand side, what you're going to do is you're going to see cases of labor unrest. So these would be strikes or lockouts that took place in the United States from 1870 to 1900. And the only U.S. states you see without some type of labor problems during that 30-year period are in Nevada and in Oklahoma. Okay? Other than that, you have some type of labor disputes in one of the other major states. Now, to try and improve the power of labor unions at the time, companies got states to pass what were called closed shops. And these are companies that could only hire union members. So, if you wanted to work for a place, okay, my cousin Stacy, she's a teacher in Missouri. They're a closed shop state, and basically, for her to become a teacher, she had to join the union first. Okay, she couldn't even apply for a job until she was a member of the union. So she would go down to like the local 504 and go and join the union, and then she waited until a job came open. In this case, it took her somewhere around 2.5 years to be able to get a teaching job where she currently has today. Okay? So those are closed shops. Now, a union shop is a business where all employees have to join unions. This was true in Michigan, where my friend Matt was working for AT&T. And to work for AT&T in Michigan, you had to, once you had 90 days from the time you were hired by AT&T to join the union, or you would be let go from your job. Okay? By the way, if you join the union, you're normally going to pay somewhere between 1.2% and 2.9% of your salary to the union, and they will, if anything happens with you one way or the other, uh, they'll represent you whenever it comes to negotiating new contracts, insurance, health insurance, other type of benefits. They're responsible for negotiating all those things for you. You elect people to represent you, and that's kind of how that works. Now, at the bottom there, you see that you have right to work states where workers are not required to join unions. And there's a lot of businesses that work in these states that don't want any part of unions in there. I can tell you this from going through management training with Chase, Pizza Hut, and Golden Corral and Subway, and probably forgetting someone, that one of the first things that happens is in management training is you're told that if you recognize any unions, then they will close the place where you work and fire everyone that works there, including you, and then they'll reopen the business then. Because some places desperately do not want unions. Now, the Molly Maguires. This is a group of Irish people that were used to try and be part of these unions. They would use intimidations, beatings, and killings. And anytime that a union tried to do something to stop, anytime a business tried to do anything to stop the union, they would get involved. Okay. Eventually, what happens though is a group called the Pinkertons will get involved, and they will go undercover with the Molly Maguires, find out what they were doing, get a big list of names, and then they turned them in. And 10 people were eventually hung when they were infiltrated by the Pinkerton detectives. The Pinkertons actually have been around for about over 150 years. During the Civil War, they were the group that was in charge of protecting Abraham Lincoln, and they were engaged until the war was over. And on a sad note, 4 days after they stopped protecting Lincoln, he was assassinated. So anyway, and at one point there were more Pinkertons than there were people in the U.S. Army. Just another fact that you may or may not find fun. Anarchists. These are people that believe that society did not need government and that violence could cause the government to collapse. And basically, the only reason we have government in the first place is to make sure that the rich keep their money and that the poor never get it. Okay? Kind of a dark view of government and society, but there were a lot of people who believed in this. And a lot of them came from Eastern Europe, which helped fuel a lot of the anti-immigrant comments going around about the United States at that time. Now, Marxism. This is possibly one of the most important things that I'll go over this entire unit, because a form of government that will come out as a result of this will be something that kind of controls every unit from the time we introduce it now until the last unit of the year. So, in Marxism, which will later be known as communism, these are under Karl Marx. And basically, the workers of society, or the proletariat, okay? So basically, the poor people of the nation will get so sick and fed up of what the rich people are doing in the nation that they will get together and overthrow all the businesses and the government, okay? Also known as the bourgeoisie. So the bourgeoisie are the well-to-do people in the nation, the people that own businesses, all of the rich, and all of them will be overthrown by the proletariat.
And once everything is overthrown, then all all land, all private property will be redistributed equally among all the people, and everyone would be equal and equally compensated. Okay, so if you're a medical doctor, you will make the same amount of money as a teacher, as a athletic sports star, as a plumber, as a worker at McDonald's. So it doesn't matter what you do, you get paid the same amount as everyone else. Uh, this made people this made a lot of people nervous because they like living in a country where there's an opportunity for them to do something that will make them filthy rich, and in many cases this is something that people are more interested in than economic equality, which is something that's very hard to enforce. Because even if you start off with that, it is possible for some people to take advantage of that and become wealthy later on. Okay? So people looked at things like Marxism and anarchy as something that came from immigrants and from unions, and the whole thought of unions, getting workers together, kind of smells of what the proletariat or workers would be doing in overthrowing business and government. So whenever they saw unions, they saw that as a mirror of Marxist or communist. So you'll see throughout U.S. history over the next, I don't know, 80 to 90 to 100 years from this point on, that that people see these as serious threats to the uh, American economic system and the American government. Child labor in the United States. Okay, so 1 out of every 6 children in the United States worked full time. Okay, so full time normally means that you're working somewhere around 60 hours a week. Okay, by the time you're 12 or 13, you would be up to about 16 hours a day, and by the time you're about 18, you are up to about 18 hours a day, 6 days a week. Okay, so uh, a lot of times they would give dangerous jobs to children, where you might be working in a coal mine in a very tight space. You might be working in a factory in an area where you might have to go through and clear out clogs, which means that you have machines that come through and oftentimes would cut off the fingers and limbs of the children that were working there. Okay. Uh, I actually had a student about 7 or 8, well, no, probably 10 years ago, who, while he was in my class, uh, well, no, not while he was in his class, a few years after he graduated, his family owned a company with industrial sewing machines, and he accidentally cut his thumb off with the sewing machine. You would think that it would double attach your thumb if you did that, but it actually ripped his thumb off. And he has pretty normal use of it, from what I understand, but you generally don't want to cut off your fingers and toes. And the number of children and women in the workplace is going to double between 1870 and 1920. There just weren't a lot of regulations for that. And some of you are thinking, oh, those kids are cute on the right hand side. And, well, actually, on all the pictures, I'm sure all the kids are cute in their own way, but just realize that most of them are working full time, and they're never going to move beyond a life like this because they have no job skills in any way that's going to deliver them from this kind of field. So, uh, kind of depressing subjects today, especially at the end with all the children working. So, everyone have a good day. Don't cocaine, don't AIDS, and definitely don't COVID. Okay? So, we'll see you all in a few days, and be safe, but don't be a safe.